is important for us to know. But anyway, the spreading of misinformation and disinformation on social media and in our local communities. Rukia is a fellow and graduate of the Media Challenge Fellowship. And big up to the organization and our partner. I think we're doing very well. And that was a class of 2022. She's also a constructive journalism fellow under the DW Academy. Again, big up to our partner, DW Academy. And the other panelist is Jennifer Kaberi. Kaberi, I think, who's a child of development. Is a child, rather, child development specialist, an international development work professional with a passion for children. So some of the issues that we're going to be dealing with today is, for instance, how to debunk information or misinformation, disinformation mostly related to children, and whether children have the capacity to actually sift fact from all the fiction that we see out there. Our vision is to transform Africa's story through empowering children to speak for themselves, data-driven solutions and technology that is Afro-centric. She believes this will result in a positive outcome in Africa that touches not only socioeconomic development, but also humanity. And I think that is very important. Jennifer spent over 10 years working in the child development sector on an array of community, district, national, and international projects. In 2017, Jennifer founded Mtoto News, and I think that is what she's representing here. An online platform to improve the lives of children through technology. Mtoto News uses the power of media and data to provide a platform for children to participate in developing solutions to the challenges that face them. Jennifer is a Harvard Law School fellow and announced at the Institute of Rebooting Social Media. YALI, I think this is Young African Leadership Initiative, Eastern Africa Fellow. She holds a BA in Sociology and Communication from the University of Nairobi and an MA in Child Development from Daystar University. So welcome, Jennifer, to these conversations. Yes, I've been told that Odanga needs to drop out of this meeting at 2:40. All right, let's get down to business. And Odanga, I hope that, oh yes, there you are. Please, maybe take a few minutes to tell us how, for instance, we have to deal with disinformation and fake news and propaganda, and especially how do you empower the communities that you work with to sift, fiction, fact from fiction, and especially because information travels so fast. And I think, as we've heard before, that misinformation or false information travels so fast around the world before truth has an opportunity to put its pants on. Welcome. We can't hear you yet. You're muted. Please unmute.
Oh, great.
You have muted yourself again.
Oh, hello.
All right, proceed, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank all of you for. Thank you all for allowing me to grace this amazing occasion. I unfortunately could not be able to make it to Uganda and enjoy the amazing fruit that the host was hinting to, but I hope next time I'll be able to get a chance to attend. Now, I think when I speak about specifically, maybe let's talk in a much more wider sense in terms of, both misinformation and disinformation. I believe that this is largely an accountability problem, and that, the kind of issues we have with our information environments and the kind of problems that lead to the rise of misinformation and disinformation within our information ecosystems are not things that are happening by accident, but are actually happening by design. And much more so when it comes to disinformation, and even less sometimes when it comes to misinformation. I believe that these are largely accountability problems that need accountability approaches in order for us to be able to try and deal with them and solve them. The reason lies are able to be able to go across the world in twice as fast, or rather in twice as fast as the truth, is partly because a lot of the social media platforms we use are designed in a way that allows such lies to be able to travel as fast as they do across the world. And there's a big question of, how do we hold social media companies accountable for the lies that they allow to fester within our communities? Because a lot of the time, it is very clear, especially from some of the investigations that we have done at the Mozilla Foundation, that, a lot of the information, what we call now in much wider terms, information disorder, has been enabled by unscrupulous business practices by social media platforms, because they design social media platforms in a way that the idea of virality, in essence, is designed to allow information to travel at a very, very high speed without necessarily being verified. And so there has been a very big effort within the civil society, within various civil society organizations, to have social media platforms try and rein in the kind of information that is moving across their social networks, at least most of the false information, just so that it keeps, because a lot of these things actually have real world harms and real life consequences that go ahead and actually pose a great danger to communities. So to answer your question, for me, how I deal with this problem is by investigating disinformation campaigns and trying to understand exactly how, number one, platforms help propagate them, and understand who the people are that organize such kinds of campaign, and of course also to understand where money exchanges hands in the case of such kinds of practices. We've just come from a study where we identified that Facebook actually had been taking money to promote election misinformation in Kenya in the days following the elections here. So we do have a serious regulatory problem, regulatory framework issue here in terms of how we hold these platforms accountable. But it's also very important to understand and to keep in mind that we cannot allow for overreach from even government bodies to happen. Mostly because these tools have also become an important avenue for freedom of expression. And as people like to say, even in Kenya, that Kenyans on Twitter are the official opposition in this country. So I think that's my 2 cents on your question. And I think we can move.
Let's pause there for a moment and let's fact check the claim that Facebook received money to maybe to advance falsehood. And I'm using that whatever, just because in the morning we were talking about our ability to put out there empirical data, verifiable information, and credible and reliable data. How reliable is that claim that Facebook received money to advance falsehood or to engage in disinformation? That is one. And what exactly do you mean by accountability approaches to dealing with disinformation? It's very quick.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we noticed during the elections here in Kenya was that there are two things that are very important to consider here within an election context, which is that Kenya actually has something called an election silence period. I think many of the other, maybe within the East African countries, there's also a case where, there are election silence periods that are mandated. And an election silence period essentially is a time when campaigns are essentially supposed to stop a few days before the elections, right? And in some countries, they actually implement them weeks before and even the weeks after elections. Now, in our research, or rather while we were doing our research, one of the things that we were able to identify was that we had a very, very big problem in the days following the elections, where we had a lot of premature and unverified election result claims that were going around social media platforms within the country. Now, both TikTok and Twitter actually decided to go about and implement labeling policies to let people know that a lot of verified info, or rather that the information that was being released by some individuals was yet to be verified and could potentially be false. But on Facebook, on top of them not having a very specific labeling policy for that, we went ahead and found several advertisements within their advertising ecosystem where people were actually able to purchase purchase ads containing unverified information about election results way before the IEBC, which is the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission here in Kenya, had been able to announce them. And again, for Facebook, in order for Facebook to be able to advertise to give you their advertising services, of course, money has to be able to exchange hands. You can find the report online, and I think the story was also broken by restofworld.org as well. So it's something that is available for everyone here to be able to access.
All right, thanks, Odanga. Let me ask Jennifer on the issue of, because Odanga just mentioned that disinformation is sometimes put out there by unscrupulous business people, and especially, the operations of some of these social media platforms. And ask the question, and especially because our children are suffering, and there's sometimes the phenomenon of dealing with the harm, especially on children, based on their access to online platforms. How do you empower children to sift fact from fiction and ensure that they are not harmed by the content that is available on those platforms? Because there's a lot of trivia, a lot of good stuff, but a lot of trivia as well, and harmful content.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I just want to piggyback on what you have said. Misinformation is enabled by the big tech. That's a reality. And unfortunately, big tech does not put children in mind, okay? So it's about money, okay? And so just also piggybacking on what he has said, that misinformation, the definition of misinformation, what we define misinformation here probably is not what misinformation in the Western world. So it's very subjective to us, okay? So it is us who know it is misinformation, but unfortunately, now that everybody has been fired, both Facebook and Twitter, we don't know if the African human resource is available to be able to identify some of these things. How does misinformation affect children? So if you have been a teenager, which all of us have been, you remember there's something your dad or your mom did or your guardian did, and you thought your world was coming to an end. So all of us, and if you've seen, they all react like, my world is going to come an end. Or you take something from them and say, you're destroying my whole world. They're not overreacting. And you're like, oh, teenagers are overreacting. Children are not they're not overreacting. That's a reality to them, that at that particular time, their world is coming to an end. So imagine a child reading a misinformation about, for example, when Uganda, those guys are called the guys who fight in northern Uganda. They're coming towards Kampala, okay? What happens? They read and they think the whole world is coming to an end because their development, their brain has not developed fully to be able to logically look at this information, okay? So, and that's why it is important when we are training children, we train them on how to be able to critical thinking, to look at that information like I don't think it is okay. Their first reaction is like, my world is coming to an end. There is fire, okay? Everything is falling down. But one of the things that we teach children is how to critical thinking. Look at this thing and look at it with a pinch of salt. And we tell them, everything that you see online is not a reality. Okay, it's not true. What you see online is not true. So we try to empower children, and then we try to help them to fact check in different ways. You know, go check, is it trending on Twitter? Okay, and then look at the major news outlets. Have they reported on it? But unfortunately, even the mainstream media, some of them online, their digital platforms, they spread misinformation. Okay, like in Kenya, during the election. So we conducted a study because, you know, for us, we had a very long election period, like 2 months, and it was causing anxiety on children. So we sent out a survey at how are your children reacting to what is affecting your children. And the number one thing was misinformation, okay? And most of the information was coming, one, through the newspapers, okay, because a journalist did not take time to go and verify, and they put it online, okay? So as much as you're teaching children, go verify, okay? Google it, look at the website, do they have misspelling? But again, unfortunately, nowadays our journalists the articles are not the best, you know? So, and then social media, because of them, so many areas, so as much as they're verifying, but we need to, for me, let's work with big tech. Let's enable big tech to start engineering ethically. If they can be able to bring Rihanna's products on my face to buy, they can actually be able to do something about misinformation. Thank you.
Let me ask a follow-up question. How do you, or maybe first I should say, because you've mentioned some things that are general, you know, seem very general. Is that born out of empirical evidence, for example, that this content is harmful to children in East Africa, or is it an assumption that we tend to make? And how do you empower? Just give us, you know, exactly what it is that you do. How do you empower children, even the ones that are based outside these big cities and, you know, urban spaces? How do you empower those children?
So welcome all of you for our session tomorrow in the afternoon. We are going to go deeper into this, but we train children on digital literacy, okay? And the five competence areas. One of the competence areas is critical thinking, okay? The other one is online safety, okay? The other one is creativity. Create your own content that is verified, okay? And creating your own content. So when a child goes and said, for example, they have said something about addiction, I don't believe it. Create your own content, okay? And then be nice, and being nice. Being nice is a digital competence. And today I've read a sixth one, which I thought is very interesting. Ignoring, okay? If you see something online and you don't like it, you don't have to read it. Nobody's forcing it. Just ignore it as a digital competence. So we teach them on digital literacy and the 5 skills to be able to navigate all these areas. And we provide for them a platform to be able to create their own content that they know is verified. And verified means if you come to a class, we say research, research, and research. Those are the three areas when you're writing a story. NTV or Monitor, or I hope I'm not taking the same group of companies, say, you know, if they're saying this, do your own research and come with your own data. Is it verified? Does it have a data backing? And then you can be able to write the story. So that's how we help our children. And then they always have to come to us and say, do you think this is true?